Scaling Trustworthy AI in Regulated Financial Environments. I'm Keegan Chambers, your host. I am the Operations Director for the Centre for Trustworthy AI, and I'd like to welcome our expert panel to the call. Let's start with some introductions, shall we? If we can go over to David first.
So thank you, Keegan. As you said, my name is David Andrade. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Xponance, also General Manager at April, which is a fintech that's a subsidiary of Xponance. At Xponance, really briefly, we're a multi-strategy investment asset management firm delivering customized investment solutions to institutional clients. I happen to co-chair our AI committee alongside one of our senior investment portfolio managers. Really ensuring that our AI strategy strikes the right balance between innovation and the practical realities of fiduciary responsibility. Really looking forward to participating in the session with you all today.
Thank you, David. And AI committee sounds very interesting, and I'm sure one that we will circle back to later in the discussion. So thank you. Arnav, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, I'm Arnav. I'm VP Technology here at Damco Solutions. So we're a digital transformation company helping clients with the how of Damco. So how do they enable themselves with AI and going end to end from consulting to implementation. Two things I'm very excited about. One thing is financial services is just the ripe industry right now. A lot of foundational model companies are focusing heavily on financial services. So Claude came out with Claude for financial services. ChatGPT is focusing, OpenAI is focusing a lot on financial services. So I think this is the right time to have this webinar. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I know that the Centre for Trustworthy AI, I've done a lot lately around the regulations surrounding AI. And so definitely the right time for this financial services webinar. Andrew, over to you, please.
Yeah, thanks, Keegan. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Andrew Welch. I'm the founder and the managing partner at a company called Cloud Lighthouse, and I'm also the executive director at the Center for Trustworthy AI. I come from a technical background. I've worked with AI and its predecessor technologies for a very long time. And essentially, I spent a lot of time with C-level executive leaders in major financial services institutions in banking, capital markets, and insurance around the world, and also folks in other industries to help those leaders really become the strategic leaders that they need to be to lead their organizations through the age of AI. So beginning with strategy and vision and turning that vision into action, and finally building the actual technical guts of what these organizations need in order to adopt and scale AI with trust at the core. So I'm really excited to be here. Thank you, Keegan.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. So for our audience out there, if I set the scene a little, as AI continues to reshape industries, one question that we've seen that echoes louder than ever is, can we trust AI? Now, we believe that the answer to this lies in building digital ecosystems that are not just powerful, but they are trustworthy. That is to say, they are strategic, responsible, safe, reliable, and scalable. And this is what we are going to be discussing on today's call. So we'll be here for around 30 minutes. Please feel free to put any questions in the chat, and we will have a live Q&A session towards the end of the discussion. So let's dive in. We are going to start on strategy and vision around AI. And I'd like to come actually first to Andrew, who touched upon this in your introduction. So we know that you've created an AI strategic framework. So what would you say are the crucial steps in financial services for establishing an executive vision for trustworthy AI?
Yeah, so we could teach a semester class on this, and I think you then need a few years of going out in the world and practicing it. But let me see if I can squeeze it down to about a minute here. What I see all the time in organizations. And I've seen this, this is not unique to AI, right? This predates AI, but too many organizations, they're very good at coming up with big ideas, right? They're very good at crafting a vision. And that's oftentimes where it stops, right? But AI is so big and it is so complex and it is so dependent on so many other aspects of the business, whether it's technology itself or the culture of the workforce or your ability to navigate the regulatory landscape pertaining not just to AI but also to whichever financial services regulations apply to you. That you have to connect. You can't do it without vision, but the vision is meaningless without action. So to me, there are really four core components of a sound, mature strategy and vision around AI. The first is the executive vision. What is it that we believe as an organization, and what is it that our executive leadership has thrown their weight and their investment behind to achieve using AI and related technologies? So that's your vision. Two are your priorities, right? What are the actual big bucket, big ticket things we're going to do as an organization? What are the areas that we're going to prioritize? Because not even the wealthiest institutions have the money to invest in everything at one time. The third is your actionable roadmap. If you cannot quickly translate your vision and your priorities into a series of real actions that you can go out and invest in and do, right? You're not going to get anywhere. So you need to very easily be able to understand and explain to the organization what actions are we going to take to get from here to there. And then the fourth component is what we call the ecosystem architecture, right? These are the technical underpinnings. What technologies are we going to put in place in order to build everything we're talking about and to achieve the dreams, right? The hopes and dreams of the vision. What does this actually look like? So, here you really need to pair vision with action with technology, and I think that Arnav is going to build on that here in a few moments. So I'll shut my mouth.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. And yes, we'll come to Arnav in a moment. David, I'm interested in hearing from you and your experience having implemented a lot of AI solutions in your past. And did you start with the vision portion? Did you have challenges as you went through that process?
Yeah, I thank you, Keegan. I can certainly relate to a lot of what Andrew just went through in terms of the early days, and the early days really not being that long ago, right? Like just 2 years or so plus. It's remarkable to think how far we've come in such a short time in terms of how fast things have evolved and the warp speed that things are moving. At Xponance, our journey towards defining an AI vision was really driven by two primary factors. There was a clear opportunity to try to figure out how do we harness this harness AI in order to really enhance the investment decisions, the decision making, and operational efficiency that was wildly apparent to a lot of people, but not clear as to exactly how we should go about, kind of creating a journey for that. That coupled with the increasing sophistication that we see with our institutional clients who expect, their money managers to really embrace innovation from a responsible and from a transparent perspective was an additional kind of complicating factor of what we had. I mean, there were a fair amount of naysayers out there, but there was an expectation that whatever we're doing, we have to be absolutely clear as it relates to data and data integrity. We really responded by creating what I referred to earlier as an AI committee. So we put a group together. I mentioned earlier that I co-chair the group along with some folks on the investment side. So it's really a balance between technology and investment professionals. And the committee was really integral in trying to figure out what is the roadmap and the journey that we were going to create. And I'll add one more element, which was a twist that we really did not expect when we first thought about setting this up, was that not only did we have to figure out the technology and the operational governance required for internal projects, But we also had a dual role to play in that we had an educational role to play upward, right up to the board of directors, right? And I think that that's a nuance that we probably didn't expect in the beginning, but it was a really important role that the AI committee had to work downward throughout the organization to kind of craft the right approach, the right strategy, but also needed to work upwards, CEO as well as the board of directors, to ensure that there was a level of understanding and we were able to kind of address the issues that they were seeing. So part of it was educational, part of it was laying out a roadmap, as you were referring to, but that kind of early challenge is probably the way I would describe it, was not expected. However, it's created a pretty good balance in terms of how we've approached our actual journey, because now we're really looking bi-directionally whenever we look at opportunities to either operationalize or implement a project or kick off a pilot or who we need to work with. We're really taking a 360-degree view of the world.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Keegan, can I jump in, because there was something that David said early on that I really liked, and that was about the expectation of institutional clients, right? So, I think that one of the things that I'm seeing, not just in financial services, but in other, I'm going to call them similar or adjacent professions. So specifically, I'm thinking of big law firms, right? Is that increasingly institutional clients have an expectation that the organizations, the financial services, the legal, the et cetera organizations that they partner with, there's an expectation that AI will be used, and it will be used responsibly and safely in order to better serve those institutional clients, right? So this is something that, and I'm seeing, right, where in professions where there's a very costly hourly billing model, even, right, where you're getting clients that will increasingly say, listen, next time I'm only going to pay you 80% of what I'm paying you now, because I expect that by then you will have used AI to do the job better, more efficiently, et cetera. So I really liked what David said there about the expectation of institutional clients to safely and reliably use this technology.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. That was a really great point to add. Arnav, as an implementer of the technology that works with many clients in financial services and other industries, what are you seeing, kind of touching upon what David said about the education piece and Andrew said about the expectations? How do you help bridge the gap between the vision and the implementation of that phase roadmap?
Yeah, I think both of them covered like all the main points, right? Like you need a framework to begin with. I know frameworks sounds like something a consultant would present it to you, but framework is a great tool to think about AI strategically, right? Like you got to think about the people, the processes, the governance, the culture, the mindset shift. So it gives you a tool to really think through AI as a technology. So I would firstly recommend start from a framework and stick to it. Don't just keep changing frameworks. All frameworks are good. One by Gartner is good. The one Andrew Welch and Microsoft co-made is amazing. It's very thorough. But then, like, from practical experience, and as David was saying, I think people is the hardest part, right? Like creating that AI committee or creating that top to bottom momentum for AI is the hardest part. And the solution is just awareness, right? Like I highly encourage all organizations, whoever is listening to this, to uh, run these educational curriculums for your executives, and they should know what AI is capable of, what value AI can drive, and only when it's top down, these vision will be converted to roadmap implementation, and it has to be a top down effort. And I found it interesting that David was talking about the bi-directional push he has to do, right? And I was talking to my other friend who works in Amazon, and he was saying in Amazon it's very similar. So on top down there's innovation, but bottom up also there's innovation. So the engineering team is pushing AI boundaries and doing innovation from bottoms up, and then there's a convergence in the middle where David was sitting, and David has been working on some great initiatives there. So again, depends on the maturity of your organization, but focusing on that top down momentum is something I highly advocate, and having a specific AI team to drive this conversation is crucial.
Brilliant. Thank you, everybody. that brings us to the end of the strategy and vision portion. Let's move now to more technical considerations and look at ecosystem architecture. Arnav, I'm going to stick with you on this one. So what would you say are the core components of a technical ecosystem that are needed to support scalable, trustworthy AI?
Yeah, and I want to take like a more wholesome approach, right? Like not just technology, but think of it from people, processes, and technologies. And I think from all three of these lenses, um, something that should be the outcome is trust, risk averseness, and security, right? So how do you make sure we enable people, processes, and technology to give us AI which is trustworthy, which has risk mitigation steps and is secure. So let's go to people first. Like as you said, we need a proper team and a dedicated team because there's enough to be thought about. AI is changing every day, so we need a specific team who's thinking about AI innovations, thinking about how that's impacting the business because it's so transformative in its nature. Like it's you got to rethink business processes to the core, and for that you need a specific team. It's a full-time job. Thinking about the process, right? Like I truly believe it's a living and breathing process. It's not a checklist where we say, okay, now this workload is trustworthy. Every month we need to go back and check if your new workloads or your AI workloads are trustworthy, are meeting your compliance needs. So Gartner calls this the governance rhythm. After every cadence, depending on your organization's maturity, the AI governance team should be checking in and seeing if your workloads are trustworthy. Um, and the second part to that, I would say, is like have those thinking tools, right? Like if I'm telling a customer like your AI should be trustworthy, what does that mean? It's a very vague statement. Trust is a word we use day to day in so many other contexts. So we got to really think of trust from a more tangible manner. Like for example, creating policies relating to trust. If XYZ happens, then this AI workload is trustworthy, and having that set up as one time and then every month just revisiting that and grading your AI workloads against those policies goes a long way. And lastly is technology, right? And within technology, again, I'm sure Andrew Welch is going to talk about the ecosystem approach, thinking of from data ecosystem. And I see it the same way, right? Like you got to see technology from different layers, look at your data side, your infra side, your ML ops side, and then the application security side. As soon as you segregate that into layers, it's very easy to focus on the right parts at the right time. So yeah, that's my overall framework, right? Like thinking about it from people, processes, and technologies, and then making sure all three things contribute to the trustworthiness of the AI workload.
Thank you. I think as well, David mentioned in his earlier answer about looking at where you invest wisely. And if you're getting those three pillars correct and you have a governance team that is continuously monitoring and reviewing, then you will be able to steer those AI investments wisely every time. So it's a really great point. Okay, so we've actually had a question in the chat around using fragmented or legacy systems, which a lot of financial institutions still rely upon. So the question is, what are some practical strategies to layer AI on top of these systems without massive overhauls? And how can organizations modernize their data infrastructure to support AI initiatives whilst operating within the constraints of an outdated technology stack? So I'm going to open the floor. Who would like to volunteer to take this question? If not,
Keegan,
I will pick one person.
I'll gladly take a first stab at it, and then we can see what Andrew and Arnav want to add to that, because I think it actually fits neatly in terms of some of the challenges that we had early on, which are probably similar to what a lot of other organizations are facing. Arnav mentioned kind of the three pillars of people, process, technology. I would argue that absolutely 100% correct. At the core, we are an analytics firm that requires and relies on data. And what we can't do is we cannot afford to get things wrong, because if we get things wrong, then our trust that people have in us in terms of decision making that we are helping or advising them to do really kind of gets turned upside down completely. So, what did we do to kind of tackle that, right? Because we have the same issues of, legacy applications and some new applications that were all kind of built for the cloud, but it's a combination and it's a mashup of kind of various strategies. So really, for us, trustworthy AI really starts and probably ends with trustworthy data, right? Again, as I said earlier on, if we have the wrong data and we make the wrong decisions off the wrong data, then everything's upside down and we're really not doing anyone any good, our customers, our clients, our prospects, or ourselves. So for us, that really meant investing heavily and spending a fair amount of time in looking at strong data governance from the outset. I mentioned our AI committee. We put that together almost 3 years ago now, right? But it wasn't until maybe a year and a half ago that we actually started practically working on implementing some of the early stage pilots. So it's not that we put the committee together and then threw our hands up and did nothing, but we realized early on that we really needed to focus on governance, ensuring that the data that was feeding the AI models, as an example, is accurate, properly sourced, fully traceable. And as a result, we kind of carved things off in bite-sized chunks. We really took a view of, we needed to get some pilot projects out there. So we focused on pieces of the data that we were sure and confident that we had a high level of integrity and the trustworthiness of the data was really there. And that's how we kind of started the process. But that takes a concerted effort of kind of looking at data governance kind of throughout, right? And that's not an easy task, but it is, in my opinion, an absolutely necessary task to kind of, to start. So what does that mean in practice? So in practice, that means ensuring that you've got really clear processes around how you do data collection, how you do data validation, how you look at retention. And what we're always asking, or the question that we're always asking is, where did this data come from and can we rely on it? And what do we need to do in terms of vetting that data to ensure that it's, really key? The other point or perspective that we took early on, in addition to kind of the data and the importance of the data, was really all around security. Our clients insure us with really sensitive financial information. And so protecting that data is really a non-negotiable element or a piece of how we do business. So in addition to the data governance around the quality, we also spent a lot of time before we actually started working on pilot project number 1 to ensure that there were really solid security protocols around how the data was going to be stored, accessed. If we were using it in terms of LLM models, how was that going to work? How do we ensure that it wasn't being exposed where it shouldn't be exposed, that we were kind of walling and ringing off things that were either proprietary or sensitive? It takes a lot to kind of think through that. And unfortunately, you have to, it's like you got to exercise those muscles before you're ready to kind of go in and compete, right? So a lot of this was kind of going into the gym and doing the training that was required before you kind of actually get onto the playing field. And then I think our kind of the last kind of point that I'll make, and then I'll kind of punt this over to my colleagues here, was really something we call modularity. Really trying to figure out, how do we do things where we can build them on top of one another? So I mentioned early on tackling small projects that we were confident in the data, but building them in a way that it was modular, that we could then start to expand them incrementally without having to kind of start from scratch. That was really, really important for us. It took a little bit of time to kind of think through how to do that, because again, remember, I'm dealing at the board level and at the operational level. So ROI, really important. How we're using our time and our dollars, our people resources, absolutely critical. So the ability to kind of tackle things in a modular fashion so that we could then become scalable was how we tackled it. I know that doesn't answer the entire question about, legacy, but that's kind of some of the things that we were thinking about as we started to embark on that journey.
Yeah. I noticed when you start. Oh, I was going to say, I noticed Andrew applauded you. I think there's a lag. Sorry. I was going to say, I noticed Andrew applauded at the start of that when it was data is key. So I was going to move over to you, Andrew, and ask what your thoughts are on this. And also, I know that you have an AI maturity assessment. How do people assess where they're at with their data estate, and and all of the great stuff that fits into that framework.
Yeah, so I want to build on what David said, and from my perspective, if you take nothing else away from the time we're spending together today, let it be this: trustworthy AI is not about putting brakes on your AI initiative, right? Trustworthy AI actually is about giving organizations and all of the stakeholders, the workforce, colleagues, investors, shareholders, board members, executive leadership, et cetera, the confidence that you need to move forward with your use of artificial intelligence as quickly as possible, right? So the goal should never be that, we have in the framework, we have 5 pillars and 25 dimensions. The goal should never be that you are fully mature across the board before you can do anything, right? The gym analogy is important, right? You're never going to become mature unless you're never going to become strong unless you're working out, right? So don't allow trustworthy AI to put a constraint or brakes or to slow down your initiative. You can make a lot of progress simply by using the tools and doing so within the context of the framework and in a trustworthy way. Now, really practically to the question that was asked, I'll make a specific technology recommendation. There's a technology, part of Microsoft Fabric. It's called OneLake. OneLake was actually, in a lot of ways, built to practically solve the problem that you mentioned of these fragmented data silos, legacy technology. So my recommendation is that you begin to very quickly, and you can do this very quickly, bring those data sources. Don't move the data source. Don't replace the data source. You don't need to modernize everything under the sun in order to begin, right? But start to bring those data sets selectively into OneLake, govern them there, use them in your AI workloads, see what you get back, use that as a way to build traction. Eventually, you can go and rewire some of these legacy systems, modernize those legacy systems, but you do not need to wholesale modernize everything in your data portfolio in order to start doing this in a trustworthy, effective way. And to answer Keegan's question, like I said, we've set out 25 dimensions, which are the 25 really key things that you need to consider and evaluate your maturity in and invest in, right? So go look at the white paper, Crafting Your Future Ready Enterprise AI Strategy. Use that maturity model to apply that maturity model to those dimensions within your organization. And that's going to start to light up areas like, hey, we have a lot of risk here. We need to invest here. This is where we're very strong. These are the components that we can use today. And if you need help with that tool, give me a shout, or give Arnav a shout. He knows it inside and out as well.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, we are drawing to a close shortly, so I'm going to read the results of the poll and look to Arnav potentially to answer this one. So, what's your organization's biggest challenge in implementing AI strategy or solutions? So the highest challenge was technical expertise, followed by data quality and accessibility, which we've talked about somewhat. Next, we've got change management and then regulatory compliance. So as Damco Solutions, you support clients in embedding these principles into your implementation strategies. So how would you advise, or what would you like to talk upon on building that technical expertise, that change management, and complying with that, regulational risk that people are concerned about?
Yeah, I want to answer in a somewhat different framing. Like, see, like these things that you can ask ChatGPT and it'll give you an answer and give you a great answer on how to do this practically. Like you can give it, this is your organization industry, this is your organization size. So I won't go into that, but I want to talk about a thinking tool that I want to leave the audience with. The reason why I think AI agents are getting a lot of traction is because I think people are able to relate to them. Why? Because AI agent, people are drawing parallels to humans, right? Like, and that's beautiful because again, everything is going to come together. Just bear with me for 30 seconds. The AI agent is here, right? And data is here. And AI agent is acting on this data. So we're like in this thinking model, we are like segregating AI from the data, and AI is acting on the data, and then we call those actions as tools. data still remains data. So now there's a way for us to suddenly be more trustworthy of the data, because we can say, okay, I'll just want to expose this data to the AI agent. So all I'm saying is, like, seeing AI systems as systems is the start of everything. Like, seeing where does AI sit in your full ecosystem. The raw materials are there, AI models are there. The solution to make AI trustworthy is thinking about it from a systematic manner. So thinking of AI systems and just engineering the systems around the AI model. And I think that's what I want to close my thoughts on.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Any more closing thoughts? We are at the end of the session. David, Andrew, anything to add?
Nope, this has been great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, fantastic.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you everybody for joining, and the audience also for engaging. Just to let everybody know, this is the first of a series of these webinars. So we will be next looking at how to build trust in AI, also how to navigate the regulatory landscape, and also looking at scaling AI successfully. So please follow the LinkedIn pages. We will be in touch with the future webinars, the dates and the times for those, and we hope that you can join us in the future. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone.